Well, thank you for having me tonight to talk about a transformation topic. I know for most people, the experience of agile transformation has been really easy. Everything goes smoothly. There's never any problems. Maybe not. So hopefully I'll shed some light into some strategies that we've started to have some success with, and try and answer some of your questions about some of the challenges that y'all are facing. So I'm going to put a link in the chat. We're going to be using a polling tool called Poll Everywhere as we go through, and so go ahead and you can do that, or you can text velocity to there's a number that'll come up later, so you can use your phone later. It'll tell you where to text, or you can just use that link. Everybody's on their computer for the most part. So I'm David Hawks. I'm down in Austin, Texas, in the 100 bazillion degree heat, surviving each day. But my background is as a CEO and transformation coach, and we built a tool called Path to Agility. And I also founded and run a company called Agile Velocity that's an agile consulting company. So for the last 12 years, I've spent working with leaders through navigating all sorts of size transformations. From one of our published case studies is around Southwest Airlines and helping them with their IT and marketing transformations. And we've worked with big healthcare companies. And so from 10,000 people in IT and that size of organization to, in Austin, we have a lot like Denver, we have a lot of software product companies and a lot of, just tech focus. So like that IT enterprise space, as well as the software product space. And we see a lot of things there. You mentioned the Scrum Alliance office where y'all used to meet, and I've been there as well as a certified Scrum trainer and certified enterprise coach. So I don't use the Scrum trainer that much. I actually haven't taught a certification class this year yet. And most of what I'm doing is around Path to Agility, which is a transformation approach. And some of the stuff that I'll share with you today are some tools that come out of that approach that you can use as well. Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into it. I on the, again, pollev.com/velocity. What I'm interested in is kind of like, what big burning questions do you maybe have with agile transformation? And I'm going to do a little bit of improv, and based on what y'all type in here, I'm going to try and work some of the top questions into the talk tonight. So that'll keep me on my toes. So it's not just things that I have prepared, but want to answer that. So go ahead and click on that link, pollev.com/velocity. I'll put it in there one more time because I just saw somebody join. And all right, so I see the first item, and the way this works is you can add items, and you should be able to upvote them. If you like what somebody else typed, you can vote on those as well. So the first item coming in is how to measure success. I got some ideas around that. What tend to be the most common problems, challenges, and their solutions for most companies? All right, I like that. We can work that in. Let's see what else surfaces here. So we'll take a minute. How to structure without being prescriptive. Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the biggest shifts, especially we saw this a lot with our healthcare customers, where they're just, coming from waterfall, you're coming from a prescriptive process, right? Like, it's like, hey, we're going to do everything one way. Everybody's doing it the same way. And these leaders think, all right, let's just document the new way and everybody will just follow the new way. Why don't we just document Agile? And I don't know how many times I've had to pull back the reins of people, like, stop trying to document Agile. Like, just reference the Scrum guide. It's there, it's documented. Like, don't worry too much about those things. All right. Shifting culture and mindset. How do you convince management they also need to be coached? Yep. Help leaders understand new roles as agile leaders. I think those are pretty related. How to align stakeholders to new approaches. So again, add things, but also go in and you can, yeah, let's get some voting going on so we can see which ones surface to the top. And so I'll try and make sure I'm addressing the top three here. So cool. All right. So we're seeing some movement. We're seeing the horse race happening of different items in here. So how to align stakeholders to new approaches that challenge their preconceptions of ways of working. Okay. All right. And clarification on the stakeholders is, could stakeholders be leaders, or are you specifically kind of thinking about, like, if it's a tech transformation, like the business stakeholders? Anybody?
Both executive stakeholders, leaders in roles.
Okay.
People that claim to be lead product managers, lead product people, but don't know really what they're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So how to measure shifting culture and mindset, how to structure it without being too prescriptive so far are our top three, but I think I can work some of these other ones in as well. Let me go ahead and get a screenshot of this so I can keep that open on the side. All right. So that's going to be my improv challenge for the night. See how many of these I can check off as we're going through. So one thing I'd like to get the next poll that I'd like to do is I've been, and this is the instructions. If you want to just use your phone for these, you can just text velocity to 22333. Either one works. Like, you can use the link or that. So I want you to think about your company, your environment, your teams that you're working with, and I want you to kind of make an assessment on which of these levels would you most associate or describe your kind of level of agility. And so we've got anywhere from what we call superficial agility, which is like, I call it putting agile lipstick on a waterfall pig. It's like, you know, we're going through all the motions and minutia of agile, but we're just as waterfall as we ever were, you know, kind of thing. Or are you in improving agility, where we're trying, we're doing all the things, and we're trying to persevere. We just can't get through to the other side, which gets to where we're getting more predictable or we're getting faster. So in the next poll, what I want you to do is to send in or choose A, B, C, or D based on the level that you would associate your organization's kind of level of agility or level of maturity, maybe would be a way of describing that. And let's see what comes out here. So I've been running this poll for about 7 or 8 years, pretty much every talk that I've done. And it's been interesting what the data that's come out of that. First data point, it hasn't really gotten better. That's a little bit sad. That's why I still can do this talk that I'm doing, which is how do we actually successfully get through transformation? Because we've all heard the stats, like, you know, 60, 70, 80% of transformations are failing. So let's try and turn that around. So that's what our mission is tonight, is to start thinking about ways that we can turn that around. So we got right now 10% superficial, 90% improving, no predictability, no fast agility. We've got 10 folks in. Anybody else want to contribute that hasn't yet? Because I know there's like 20 people on the call. We're missing some folks. Let us know if you need the link again. We can get you that. Okay, so 90%. The link isn't working. Is anybody else having problems with the poll everywhere link?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yes. Okay. So
I have joined from my cell phone, so cannot.
Yeah. So do text. It's 22333. You can text the word velocity to that, and yeah, that should work just as well. And that probably won't have any kind of like firewall issues or anything like that. So So this, you're pretty close to the numbers I said. There's not been a ton of variance over the years. So what we've seen is on average, it's been about 29% superficial, about 51% improving, 17% predictable, 3% fast, right? And so we're not too far off of that. And so the question is why, right? Like, why are we're improving sounds good, but what actually, if you dig into the data, what a lot of organizations, they're stuck in improving. They're not getting through, right? They're not, getting to this next level of predictability and this kind of like superficial state. So that's part of what we're going to try and cover tonight is what are some of those big challenges that are keeping us from persevering through and getting all these benefits that agility promises. Some of them are already in your questions from earlier, right? You're saying like, all right, well, we got leaders that aren't engaging. We've got a culture mismatch. So this getting the stakeholders on board, they're not changing their behaviors, right? So those are all, you've already started to highlight some of those things that are really some of the challenges. So we're going to dig into some of those a little bit, and let's look at the next thing. So building on that, I'm just kind of trying to get a sense of doing a little foundational things, gathering some data here, and then we're going to dig into it. So what are some of the top challenges y'all are facing, right? Some of them are, again, in your questions, but that's the next set of data. Let's go ahead and pop some of those in here. Okay, I saw something different on my screen over here. Actually, is that what y'all are seeing? No. All right, I'm going to skip this slide. I think this is an old slide. All right, so here's what one of the biggest issues that we're seeing is we call it implementing practices over outcomes. And what we mean by this is often what's happening is an organization said, or some leader says, hey, we want to go agile. We want to do this agile thing. And they get so focused on doing all the things in the picture. Y'all know what picture I'm talking about? Like, we're going to do all those things, right? It could be the safe picture. It could be the Scrum picture. It could be like, and it's so focused on just implementing the practices. We had one mega transformation where their goal was, we're going to launch 20 arts by the end of the year. That's how we'll know we're successful with our agile transformation. If we launch 20 arts, we get 20 arts going. And they declared success, and they weren't really working with that much more agility than they were before. Right? They were just managing waterfall projects, waterfall funding, using arts, using SAFe. They had new roles, they had RTEs, they had product managers, they had all these things, but they weren't really getting a whole lot of benefits. And what we want to make sure is that, yes, I totally agree with you, Krista. What we want to look at is what's the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And we need to focus on that first, not the practices first, but focus on what is it that we're trying to achieve? What's the business outcome that we want? We got to get everybody rallied behind that. And that's one of the reasons why the data shows what it shows, like the 17% superficial and what was it, 83% that was improving. One of the reasons that's happening is because if I go to y'all and say, okay, we're going to do Agile, are you super motivated? Is that like, oh God, I'm so, now y'all might be all believers, right? But like, if you're not a believer and somebody just comes to you and says, hey, I got to change, let's do it. You're not on board, right? It's disruptive. Change is fearful, right? Like if somebody comes to you and says, just think about the first time somebody came to you and said, hey, I want you to be a Scrum Master. And you're like, I'm excited that you're confident in me, but what the hell is that? Right? And how does that work? I don't know how to be great at a Scrum Master. I knew how to be great at the old job that I had. I don't know if I can be great at this job. And so if we don't have a clear outcome and urgency to change, then we're not going to persevere. The transformation is hard. if we don't have clarity of what's on the other side, what's kind of the treasure on the other side, we're not going to persevere through this challenge. So we've got to get clear about what's the outcome that we're after and motivate folks for change. The second thing is we see way too often people, like the sales hotline calls for us and they're like, hey, we want you to come help us do Agile. And they go, yeah, can you come train my teams? And we're like, well, we can, but that's not going to be enough, right? So, somebody said in the, one of those questions, right, was like, how do we get leaders involved? And so there's two problems with this, like, come train the teams. Well, first, it's more than a team level problem. And second, it's more than a training problem, right? Just because, and some of the thinking is saying, well, if we got a bunch of smart people, right? Can you just teach them the new way and they'll figure it out, right? Well, the good and the bad of Agile is there is no one size fits all. It isn't a prescription, which means it is flexible to work one way with one team and to work a different way with a different team, or to do Scrum with one team and Kanban with another team. There is no one way. And that makes it difficult that you can't just say, all right, let's just train everybody on this new documented process, right? So we've got to think about how do we provide the coaching support, and that coaching could be internal or external, right? But people who have some expertise that are partnering with the people trying to implement it to help navigate what's the best way that's going to work here, right? And work in this environment or work in this part of the organization. It could work differently in a different part of the organization. So what we've realized is that a transformation happens at actually 3 levels, not just team level, but also what we call the system level. Like, think about the team of teams, the flow of work through the system of work, and the organizational level. And so somebody said, like, one of the challenges being shifting culture and mindset. Well, here's the thing. You can't actually change culture directly. So we as Agilists, we always like to jump on that one, right? Like, there's culture mismatch. Like, they don't have an Agile culture. They don't have an Agile mindset. It's a mindset. It's not a process. Well, and it's true, but the reality is culture is a result of our behaviors. So what we've got to do is figure out how are we going to change the behaviors. And here's the other thing. The teams, the people at the ground level mimic the behaviors of leaders. So if our leaders aren't shifting their behaviors, if the lead, so how many times have you heard like, yeah, I'll go do Agile, but what's the date and what's going to be in it? Right. And if leaders are still asking like the waterfall questions, or your stakeholders are still driving things in a like waterfall push manner, then our behaviors aren't necessarily going to shift. Therefore, our culture is not really going to shift. And we have to be intentional about shifting those behaviors. We have to be intentional in like leveraging organizational change management techniques to celebrate wins or celebrate those new behaviors and highlight when somebody acts in a different way. I remember one transformation where I had the leadership team kind of define statements like the manifesto, right? Like, we value this over we value that. And one of them was something like, we value teaming over heroism, right? But the old culture valued heroism. And they're trying to be explicit about, hey, no, we're going to value teaming. And then they had to follow that up as leaders to highlight when that teaming was happening, right? As opposed to do things that they used to do when they would reward kind of the heroism type of activity. Fourthly, if I can get this slide, there we go. And this hits on one of the things that y'all asked about, which was like lack of business engagement. How do we get those stakeholders on board? Well, part of it is we got to educate them, right? Part of it is when we're kicking off a transformation, say it's a technology transformation, we can't do it and kick it off without them, right? Them being the business stakeholders, the executives, they all have to have a seat at the table. That's actually one of our kind of readiness criteria of, are you ready to do a transformation? If you don't have your business stakeholders at the table being a part of that as a sponsor, then you're not ready to start, right? And so that's going to take some work to get them to understand what's in it for them, right? Because they're not happy. They're likely not happy with technology's performance. There's a reason why you're changing to Agile, right? Like that. And so what we got to do is help them understand how us doing that shift is going, again, back to outcomes. What's the outcome that they would be motivated by? And we got to show them how this is going to help them and achieve the goals that they have, right? But they've got to be there at the table. And we've got to look at how are we optimizing across the whole kind of value stream from like concept to cash. When we think about an idea all the way to it's in production and it's a value, what are all the things? What are the processes? Because we surely could sub-optimize the flow all the way through the system by just focusing on one area, right? I don't know how many times I've heard an organization say, we're not getting features out fast enough. We need to hire more developers. And when you dig into it, where do you think the bottleneck is? Is it that we're not writing code fast enough? Yeah, most of the time it's that we're not getting quality code out. And it might be that we're still doing a bunch of manual testing. So we don't have, we're not getting through the testing cycle fast enough, which we could optimize by hiring more QA people, or we could optimize by automating tests, right? Like that's a crazy, crazy thought, right? Or developers could write less crappy code, right? Like I mean, there's as opposed to hiring more developers, which actually would slow down the system. So we've got to look at, this theory of constraints, too much whip, too little focus, all of those types of issues. We got to look at the system as a whole. And that's one of the things that we've got to, like somebody put in there, how do we convince management they need to be coached? You're never going to be able to go to a senior leader and say, I need to coach you, right? And it doesn't matter, even like I can go in and have even the CEO title and all these kinds of things, and I might have better luck because of that. But I still, who am I to tell this leader, especially a senior leader, that I know how to do their job better than they do? They've been successful in their career. They're smart people. They got to the level that they are for a reason. So what we've got to help them do is see things with a new lens, right? So we've got to educate them around that. And the best way to engage with them is to first seek for understanding of what their pains are, and then help them see how, what they like, say their pain is, we're not getting enough done. We're not getting enough throughput. Our cycle time's too slow, whatever metric you want to use for that, but we're not getting enough value out the other side. That's a very common one that leaders would say that they have. And we're not meeting our strategic goals because we're not getting enough stuff done. And if we could help them see that flow through the system, and we could help them see the bottlenecks, right, then they could look at, and that's where in many cases the leaders can't see it, because our leaders' sphere of control is siloed. I've got the back end developers, Nicole's got the front end developers, Sherry's got the QA people. We're trying to optimize each of our little silos. We're looking down as opposed to looking across. And what it should be is me and Nicole and Sherry should be partnering to manage the overall system and trying to optimize it all the way through. And that's one of the big shifts that we need to help leaders start to see, right? Is how can they see that system? Because it'd be easy if we were manufacturing at a Tesla plant, right? Because you would look on the floor and you could see where the bottlenecks are. It's physical, right? Like we can see, oh, there's a bottleneck over here. There's a bunch of chaos happening over there. We deal with virtual goods. Now we deal with remote workforce. We can't see really anything happening, and it makes it a lot harder to manage. And so that's why we use tools like a Jira or an ADO and DevOps pipelines and things like that. And we need to start tracking and getting visibility to the flow through the system, right? So in order to be able to optimize all the way through. One of my early clients was AT&T had just bought a company in Austin called Wayport, and they did all the Wi-Fi for Hilton, Starbucks, McDonald's, red boxes. There was 35,000 devices that every time they did an update, they needed to update, right? 35 devices out all on those sites. And I was working with their development and teams and QA teams, and they were trying to optimize, and they were doing quarterly releases, and they were focused on trying to get those faster, right? Like down to every 6 weeks, every month, right? Like, and I was a part of kind of some work that was done to kind of look at the overall, and I learned that the deployment cycle to get software out the door was 12 weeks. It took 12 weeks to update those 35,000 devices. So what would happen if they got their development cycle down to they could release monthly? Nothing, right? It wouldn't help them at all, because their deployment windows, it still takes 12 weeks to deploy. So even though they released 3 times in that period of time, they can't actually, the bottleneck was the deployment, and nobody in the organization was working on that. Nobody in the organization thought that was the issue. They just were trying to get more features done faster. Like, that's what I mean by optimizing from end to end. We need to look at where that bottleneck is, and that's what we need to go focus on. And sometimes it's not even in technology, right? If that's where our transformation is happening. So I want to have a little fun. What are some bad transformation goals that you've observed, that you've seen? What would be one that you think is just, like I mentioned one already, which was like launch 20 arts, like I'm thinking like success measures. We would know our agile transformation is successful when, what are some things that y'all seen that are just like, not, get more stuff done faster? What other things would be some goals or measures that you've seen that might not be so good? Anything else? Because when your number one improv item was how to measure success. So let's see if we can get any good ideas here. Increase velocity. Yep, velocity is definitely the answer. Deploy twice as many epics in the same time. Yeah, well, so what's the definition of an epic? That's always fun. Oh, we got to normalize what the definition of a feature is in Jira and start tracking that. Yeah, good luck with that. Get more story points. I had a client who outsourced their development, and their contract with the development vendor was so many dollars per point delivered, and they let the development vendor do their story point estimation. They used their whole 1-year budget in 6 months. Surprise? No. And then they gave them more money. I was like, what is going on? And then I realized what was happening is the employee VP of that group was also incented for his velocity charts to look good, right? So it was a win-win, but they spent like $bazillion and they didn't get any more value. X% of agile teams or projects, just so we can say we're agile. Reduced headcount. Yeah, so hit the dates, 0 bugs. Yeah, not so good. So yeah, maybe these aren't the best ways of measuring success. I did say they're bad. Each art totally independent, no meetings with multiple arts participating. Yeah, let's just stop collaborating, right? Like, collaboration is wasteful. Did y'all know that? It's an inefficient practice. Dictatorship is much more efficient, right? I'm joking. Like, don't write that one down. But that's truth. Like, being a dictator, just say giving orders and telling everybody to follow orders, that is actually way more efficient than collaboration. Doesn't necessarily lead to good results, right? But yeah, so careful what, too many times I almost always have to correct a leader. Can't help myself if they say our job is, we're trying to get everybody more efficient. I was like, no, you mean effective, right? Like, efficiency isn't necessarily the goal here. So cool. So we're gonna do a little activity. I'm gonna give you another tool. Hopefully you can access this one. I'm gonna introduce you to, you see a browser window, not my slides, right? I think if I shared screen correctly, yeah, okay. Oops, I clicked on the wrong thing here. I want to click on this, and I'm gonna get this link. I'm gonna put this in the chat. All right, you should be able to click that link. And what we're looking at in the Path to Agility transformation approach, what we've outlined are what we call the 9 business outcomes, the things that have surfaced over and over again of like, why do Agile, kind of thing. And we often will use these as the first conversation we're having with leaders. Remember, failure pattern number 1, that we need to focus on outcomes, not practices. We want to change that conversation right off the bat. So one of the first things we're going to do with leaders is say, why are we doing this initiative? We need to get clear about that. So in a second, I see 9 people are in. So we've got enough to play along. I'm going to go ahead and open voting. I'm going to give you 3 votes. And I want you to pick out of those 9 things, which are the 3 that you think would be the most important for your organization. If you were CEO for the day, and you were to say, hey, we need to do Agile because of these would be the 3 things that we should be focused on, of the reason behind kind of our transformation to Agile. So we've got 3 people who've got their votes in. 5, 6, 7. And so again, we want to use this activity to start reforming and reshaping the conversation around outcomes, around why. And the first, when you walk in and you do this with a leadership team, do you think when they walk in, they're like, yeah, we're in alignment on what our goals are? Usually they're like, they probably think they're in alignment, and then you do the activity, and do you think they're in alignment? No, they're all over the place, right? And so that's one of the things we're trying to expose, is to say, so I'm going to give us 10 more seconds here. That's what we're trying to expose, is to help them be aware. And why, let's think about, why is it important that leaders are all aligned in what the goal is, right? If everybody's saying, one leader's over there, we're doing this because of customer sat, one saying we're doing it because of quality, one saying it, like, then it's not clear. There's not a clear sense of urgency. We're not in alignment. That's one of the issues that we have with these engagements. So transformations. So, all right. So we have 8 votes for customer satisfaction, 7 votes for continuous improvement, 6 for predictability, 5 for quality, 5 for employee engagement. So those are our top 5 there. And so does anybody want to speak to one that they voted for, and why they think that one is important? Anybody want to jump in? I've been doing a lot of talking, so.
Sure, I'll talk about speed for a second.
All right. All right, Aaron, and then we're going to go to Courtney. Okay.
Sorry,
was that?
Yeah. Let me turn my camera. I work for a hyper-growth startup company, and speed is probably the most important thing that everybody talks about. The mantra for a very long time was build it fast and we'll fix it later. And it's gotten us into a lot of trouble. And so now we're in a position where we're doing a lot of cleanup. And the concept that I'm the director of Agile for the company, and I'm trying to promote the concept of we have to slow down in order to speed up, and people don't get that. They don't recognize how and why, and it's a struggle. Yeah, it's like one of the best analogies I heard for that is the Navy SEALs do not just go flying into a room to clear it, right? Like that, they have the slow down, like there's a military, like slow down, do things methodical and execute versus just kind of flying around, right? Courtney, what was one that you had?
One of the ones I picked was the market responsiveness. I also had innovation and customer satisfaction. But what was funny about this exercise to me is that, so those would be the business outcomes in our organization, I think, if you asked the right group. But in technology, all we're talking about is everything else.
Yeah,
So
right.
we're talking about all those other things, but we rarely talk about market responsiveness, innovation, and customer satisfaction because we're so tunnel visioned on the others.
Yeah. So, and that's why when we're facilitating this type of conversation, one of the things that I'll usually get us to tighten it up a little bit by saying, okay, so what is it that we need to do in the next 3 to 6 months? Because, and I was fast forwarding a slide here, because as you started to look at these, what you're kind of hitting on is there's some dependency amongst these items. Like one thing leads to the other. All of them ultimately lead to customer sat, but customer sat's kind of like the most lagging indicator on here, right? If we do all these things, then hopefully our customers are happier, they're buying more products, we're delivering more value. But employee engagement is actually the most foundational thing on here, right? If we don't have good employee engagement, or we have a lot of turnover or all those things, then we're probably have some of these other problems, right? And so that's one of the things that we want to help shape the conversation is say, okay, so given we want customer sat, what is it that we need to focus on the next 3 to 6 months as a goal? And maybe it is quality is the issue, and quality is keeping us from having speed, and speed is keeping us from market responsiveness, and market responsiveness is keeping us from customer sat, right? Vishal, I see your hands up. What you got?
Hey, thank you. I hope I'm audible and I'm not echoing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so I voted for 3 factors. The first and most crucial, which I think is customer satisfaction, considering the customer centricity. Then being predictable. And the third one is continuous improvement. So if you have these 3 factors, I think other factors will come in line. So quality, productivity, and market responsiveness, these will come along with the customer satisfaction. If any one of these is hampered, your customers are not going to happy. Then your speed, innovation, if you have your continuous improvement aspect, your Kaizen, your feedback loops, your retrospectives on each level of your skills in your organization, if you have it, you are covered. You get your continuous improvement, you have your Kaizen aspect, and along with that, the innovation will come along. And at the team level and at the art or at the group level, at the scale level, if you are predictable enough, right, then the value flow with the value streams from the business perspective, they can predict, and with that you can manage your budget and everything else.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree with that. It's like, so all of those, the reality is all of these are good. None of these are bad. It's not like we don't want, there's something on here. It's like, no, we don't want that. The question that we want to get focused on around agile transformation is to get clear about what is it that we need to improve the most in the next, whatever this next time horizon of effort is, right? And if we can get clear about that, right? Like right now we have such predictability problems, or right now we have such quality problems, or right now it's really speed, whatever that is, if we can get clear about it, then we can break this humongous challenge down, right? Agile transformation and all the agile things, right? If I put 10 coaches in a room and said, what's the right next agile thing to do? How many answers am I going to get? Probably about 100, right? Like, there's so many different things that we could do. The question is, what's the right next move? And is it moving us closer to the thing that's the most urgent? And so that's what we want to help start getting the leaders to be clear about. What is the urgency behind? What is it that we need to get focused on? And if we can do that, then we can break the problem down into, okay, it's about quality. All right, so what do we need to do to move the needle on quality in the next quarter or two, right? That's what we want to start shaping this conversation with. All right, let me go back over here, and we'll just use the chat for this one. If I plopped you into a new organization and you were to try and figure, and I told you, I want you to assess, do they have good agility or not? What are the things that you would be looking for, right? How would you know that the company or teams are doing good agility? So type, and you can just do them individually, but let's just kind of blow up the chat here with what are 2 to 3 things in the Zoom chat that you would be looking for to know if there's good agility. Let's just kind of create a little stream of stuff here. Any questions on the question? No? All right, let's go fire away. Is anybody going to type, they're using Jira? No, that's probably not a good one, right? No. All right. Okay. All right. Teams understand users and what they want. Continuous improvement as a culture. Let's see. Fast concept to customer. What terminology are people using? Employee engagement. Deliver working, tested, valuable product in a sustainable way more frequently. Predictability. Ask the team whether they know what's next, communicate clearly, what metrics they're using. Do they even have visibility to their work? Probably. Customer feedback loops. Yes, all good stuff. Let's pop it in here. So when you think about the things that are going in there, you know, we think about classifying things that we do or how we think about it into couple different categories. We just looked at what we call the 9 business outcomes, right? Think about those as like things the CEO would say, right? What does the CEO want? They're never going to say, I want to limit WIP, right? Like they're not going to say that, right? They're not going to say, I want empowered self-sustaining cross-functional teams, right? Like they're not going to say that, right? But they are going to say, we need to get more done. We need to deliver faster. We need to be more predictable. We have quality issues, right? So those are what we call the business outcomes. There's also things that we think about that are more agile outcomes. There's things that we think about that are more capabilities that we're developing. And there's agile practices that we do, right? So I see some things in here that are like more practices, like are they doing retros? But what's more important is the thing that was added to that, right? It wasn't, Joe, it wasn't just about they're doing retros, but everybody's engaged, they're willing to help each other. And I might add to that, and we're seeing action and improvement from it, right? So when we break that one down, there's a practice of doing retros. Just the fact that they're doing retros doesn't necessarily tell us, that could just be superficial agility. It doesn't tell us that they're good retros. What we want to see is, are they taking action? Does the team have continuous improvement, right? And that's a capability. That's what we would classify as a capability. The team is continuously improving, right? That's what we really want to assess. That's what we want to look for, is are they improving to achieve some outcome, right? Teams taking ownership of their process, the team's empowered, right? That would be more of an agile outcome that ultimately might lead to speed, quality, those types of things. So what happens many times in agile transformations is we see, all right, we want all those benefits that agile promises. We want faster, we want better quality, we want happier customers, and let's go implement all these agile practices, right? Like SAFe, like Scrum, like Kanban. And then they wonder, like, why didn't we get the results? And what we believe is there's missing connective tissue, right? There's a missing connective tissue between those agile practices. And we need to get clearer about what are the capabilities that we're trying to develop, right? Based on the business outcomes that we have. So we start with the business outcomes and we say, all right, we want predictability. All right, how would we know? What are the capabilities we need to develop in the organization, like that teaming versus heroism? And then how would we know? And then lastly, we figure out what are the practices that are going to help us, right? Practices should come last, right? And in most transformations, practices come first. And we wonder why we don't get all the benefits, right? Because we're just doing all the things. without really any intent around why we're doing those things. So, so we want to think about what's that capability with that. So we're going to do another activity. If I can end this poll, we'll accept those results. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click this. I'm going to get rid of these things, and we're going to do another poll over here. I'll put a link in the chat. Go ahead and click that one. And I'm going to kind of hit y'all with some questions here. And I want you to think about your organization. And we're going to do a little self-assessment. And the reason why we like to do assessments is not to get a grade, not to get a report card. Why we're doing this is to create awareness, right? Self-assessments help us go, oh, yeah, we're missing something. Oh, I didn't realize that was there. So we're going to actually do kind of a quick 11 question assessment and see what kind of results come out of that. And hopefully identify something that you can do that's actionable for your organization. That you can identify what's the right next Agile outcome or capability that you can focus on for improvement. So let's see, we've got 16 people in here. All right, awesome. Everybody's in. So the first one we're going to assess is what we call compelling purpose. And I'm going to go ahead and open voting. At the bottom, you should see not met, slightly met, partially met, mostly met, fully met. And what you're assessing is this statement up here. Compelling reasons why the organization should change has been communicated across the organization, clear measures of success defined, and everyone is compelled into action. All right. So let's go ahead and we'll take about 30 seconds for each of these. We're just going to kind of cruise through these and see where we end up. So I'm going to go ahead and close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So we've got mostly slightly met here, a little bit of not met, partially met. So we're gonna lock in at slightly met on that one. All right. Rollout strategy. An Agile leadership team. This could be like a guiding coalition, a change champion team. Some group has been formed that's established, and a transformation roadmap is defined, taking into account new organizational structure demands, top risks, and incremental rollout, so that we have a strategy of how we are going to. I need to open up voting. So these things are in place on terms of like our transformation strategy, our transformation rollout strategy. Where are we going to go first? Which teams are going to be in the first wave, right? A lot of our organizations are pretty sizable, and we got to be intentional about how we're going to approach it. We're not going to probably apply it everywhere in every place at once. Okay, I see we've kind of paused. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Oh, we're all over the place on this one. Woo. All right. So we've got some fully met, so that's good, and we got some mostly met, so that's actually pretty good. But we're going to average. It looks like we're averaged out around slightly met on this one. But so some interesting data there in terms of some organizations are a little stronger there, so that's good. All right, next one, and I'll just open voting right off the bat. So products defined. Products are clearly defined and understood and are serving as a driver for organizing the system and teams. So products in this case, it's like we understand how we deliver value. And it's like the container of our teams of teams, right? We build teams of teams to deliver products or things of value to the company. It could be internal, could be external. All right, we're gonna lock in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we are. Okay, cool. So that's pretty strong actually compared to the other ones. So mostly we've got a good grasp. Not surprising for a market like Denver that is more of a software product market, and I'm assuming some representation here. Usually in a market, like Indianapolis, where it's all like IT enterprise, they are way somewhere else on the spectrum of this. So good to see there. All right, value alignment. Systems of teams is organized around value. The system of teams is organized around value to deliver their work with minimal outside dependencies, tightly aligning the relationship between delivery and the customers and stakeholders, so that we've figured out building the right cross-functional system of teams, right? Where we don't have a lot of handoff dependencies. Somebody put something in one of the problem areas, right? Like arts that can't talk to other arts or something. I don't know. We got the right system design is what we're kind of looking for here. So let's lock in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so a little bit, we don't have any fully mets on this one. We've got a couple mostly mets, but again, we're in the kind of slightly met zone for this one as well. All right, now we're down to team level. So we kind of worked our way, we're in the what we call the align stage. We worked our way from organizational to system now to team. So now we're talking about at a team level, like your Scrum teams, that those teams are formed, which means that their teams know their stakeholders. They have like working agreements. They have clarity of roles. Like they have Scrum masters, they have product owners if they're doing Scrum. So teams understand that. They understand their purpose as a team, and that they've got clear, they understand how they're gonna work and how they're gonna function. So let's lock in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Okay. Yeah. So you typically see a little bit more what I would call green, or kind of at the more positive at the team level than we do at some of the system and organizational level items. But we also see some more variability at the team level because some teams are further along than others. But this one a little bit stronger. I'm going to actually make that one mostly met on this one before we move on. Okay, so now we're going to do, we did kind of what we call the align stage, and these next ones are what we call more at the learn stage. So a little bit higher level of maturity. We're going to hit organization again. First one is around action enabled. So this is more of an organizational change management type of thing, that we got that guiding coalition of change champions. Somebody is facilitating the overall transformation. We're resolving organizational impediments with urgency. We're continuing to communicate the change vision and wins. Like we're managing the transformation, and we've got measurable progress being communicated. People are taking action, right? That's we've got this activity and support of what's happening within our transformation efforts. So we're locking in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, all right. This one needs some work. So we've got no mostly mets, no fully mets, some partials, but mostly slightly mets on this one. All right. Now let's talk about leaders empowering teams. So are our leaders shifting to a team-based responsibility and performance over individual results? Supporting team autonomy? Are they building a culture of learning and improvement culture, just demonstrating their own agile leadership? So this is that leadership shift that we like to talk about. I know we talked about leaders need to understand the support that they need. So let's see where we are with this. Locking in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, not as bad as the last one. So we've got we definitely have some teams or some organizations that definitely need some help here, but I would say this one's a little bit more in that partially met zone. All right, so we got 3 more of these, I think, 8, 9, 10, no, 4. Math's hard at this time. All right, so this one's called value delivery coordinated. We're at the system level. So teams of teams are working together to deliver value and manage handoffs and dependencies. So things like Scrum of Scrums, right? Like we're doing those types of activities that are helping us coordinate across the teams, and that's going smoothly, right? All of those things are happening and are in place. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, yeah. So pretty decent on that front. Probably one of our stronger ones that we've seen so far. Okay, so cool. Product value management. So this one is kind of thinking about how are we managing our products? Again, at the system level, at kind of that team of teams level, the product management function is established. We've got clarity around that. We're engaging with customers and stakeholders. We're managing that communication. We've got clear sequencing of work and evaluation of product success. Like there's the responsibility is there. People are taking ownership of it. The role is fulfilled in the organization. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I was expecting a little higher on this one, but all right. So we're slightly met on this one. We got some in place, but 2 more at the team level. So this one's about visibility of work, so that we've got clear visibility of the work. All the work of the team is planned and progress, done and visible. So, you know, we often would say, let's just get all our work visible on a board or in Jira or whatever the tool is. But we've got all of that work. We've got kind of a good, healthy backlog of work. Those kind of things are in place. We'll see where we're at in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Yeah. So pretty good. I would say this one's, let's put mostly met on this one. And then last one here, team ownership. So team is self-organizing to collaboratively take ownership of their work and improving continuously to deliver value more effectively. So this would be teams like having meaningful retros, teams taking ownership of sprint planning and backlog refinement. We've got product owner, we've got scrum master, right? Like if you're doing scrum, like we've got all those scrum practices, we're doing all those things, and we're doing those in a healthy way, not just going through the motions and checking boxes for that. So we'll lock in 3, 2, 1. All right. Oh, no, not Mets, no fully Mets. So we're smack dab in the middle on that one. So what we just did is I'll go ahead and in the poll here, accept those changes. And what we just did was kind of built this assessment, right? Now we got kind of this heat map of those those capabilities as an organization. And it starts to give us this view of thinking about, you know, what's our current state? So we see like team form visibility created are green, like down at the team level, we've got some things, maybe a little bit to work on in team ownership. But when we look at where, you know, the most of the orange is up here in the organizational level. So, you know, I haven't gone through like this whole model, but, you know, down the left, you see team system org, and then you see align and learn. And really, and that's not uncommon, what we just kind of uncovered, which is to say, we have more opportunity at this organizational level. And then some things at the system level as well, more than it's a team level problem, right? So creating visualizations like this is a way to get in front of those leaders who are like, hey, come train my teams. It's like, your teams aren't the problem right now, right? The system and the organization is where more of the problem is. Let's talk about that for a little while, right? Now, if we were more yellow or orange at the team level, we probably would still need to do some things at a team level as well. So let's jump into, one other thing I wanted to show on that view. What was customer sat was our top business outcome that we chose earlier. So one of the things that is some things that we start to look at is to say things like, all right, if customer sat is what we're after, which of these capabilities are the most important to achieve customer sat? So the things that are highlighted are the things that might be the most important to look at. So if we're after customer sat, again, that starts to say, all right, these 3 things that are yellow and orange might be the things to focus on first. Remember, we're trying to get to, what do we do next, right? How do we make the right next steps? But if we said, you know, let's say employee engagement was number 1, then that would create a different view, right? It would start to tell us that there's different things that we might want in order to focus on. So again, going back to that kind of honeycomb picture, what we want to get clear about is what's the business outcome we want, then figure out what the capabilities are that we need in order to figure out, you know, we call it path to agility. In order to figure out our path, we need to understand our future state, which the business outcome answers, and our current state, right? And then that helps us determine what are the steps that we need to take in order to get there. All right, so last question that I will ask you in the poll. Let me get you that link in case you shut that down. I'll just type it again. So pollev.com. or that text to 22333. Out of those things we just looked at, we just rated all of these areas here. Which one, when you think about your organization and where you think your organization needs to spend the most attention, what would you prioritize towards the top? So we've got team empowerment and value delivery coordinated coming in hot there. Let's see what else. Sandian, there is, if you go to pathtoagility.com, there is a longer kind of video, and we, if at the end I'll also, if you provide your email, we'll send you all that information as well. All right, so far we've got value delivery coordinated is the biggest winner, but we've got things kind of all over, and there's nothing wrong, there's nothing that could be true, right? Each of y'all might have a different place to start, or where you're feeling the pain around that. We almost have every one of them covered. You just get one vote, right? Like, it's not allowing you to, they're not, I think I set it up where it's just one vote. So, but we almost have every single one of these selected. So, but my action for you to kind of take is whatever you just picked, right? Hopefully what I'm trying to help you get to is, okay, try and think about what does that break down into? What are the things that might need to happen in order to do that? What are and to determine, what are some actions that you might be able to take in order to get there? So let me jump to there is one of the questions, I'll answer one last kind of improv question that was in there around like measures of success. So let me do that, and then I'll wrap up. So one of the things that we can kind of do is say for speed, like a common thing for speed might be a measurement, like we want to look at cycle time, or lead time, whichever one and say our high is like 60 days or something like that. And so one of the things that we can do is we can start to capture. So again, getting to the business outcome is the most critical thing. Then once you know your business outcome, then you need to define what are the measures of success. So if it's customer sat, then I might be measuring something like customer net promoter score, or something, or some kind of customer sat score. Or if it's more, I've had customers where they change that to more stakeholder, like partner satisfaction, and getting feedback that way, or speed, right? So getting to the business outcome will help us identify the measures. And then the other way that we kind of measure progress, if I jump into an organization with a little more data, this is a group where it's got like assessments over a period of time, and we can see, like, we originally did it and everything was red. We've made some progress, we've made a little bit more progress, and things are getting better. And you can see kind of the curves inside of that. What that's measuring is the progress in achieving the capability, right? So there's two kinds of measures that we're looking at here. One is the actual like data that we can capture out of our system, right? Like cycle time, net promoter score, those types of things. But we also, sometimes those can take a while to shift, right? Customer net promoter score could take a while to shift. So how do we know that we're actually making progress towards achieving the capabilities that we need? And so again, looking at, like, within team ownership, there's ability to go in and look at like the sub capabilities, if you will, and we can kind of see, like, all right, where we are with team coaching versus delivery team versus continuous team improvement, and start to track that, right? And so again, trying to think about your capability model. What are the things that are the capabilities that you need to achieve the business outcomes, and starting to measure progress on those. That's how we would encourage to kind of look at the metrics. and look at both lenses, right? Look at both kind of like hard data and look at kind of capability progress data. All right, I think I'm coming up on time. So if you want more information on like, yeah, I'm sure we'll get the slides posted on the Meetup or whatever, but if you want us just to send that to you, send you some more information around, like we've got a white paper around the pitfalls of transformation, anything more about the path to agility, and how to learn more about that and get access to the tool and things like that. Just go ahead and drop your email into the poll. I'm not going to publish that for everybody, but if you put your email in the Velocity 22333 or in the polev.com Velocity, if you just drop it in there, then we'll get you all that information. And that's the show. I'll hang out if there's any questions, but I don't want to keep everybody hostage either. So I'll turn it back over to Nancy and Nicole.
Wow, that was wow. You know what? I just thank you for all that interaction. That was super cool. Just like one after the other, and just
Yeah,
keep
cool.
us engaged. And I love that. I thought that was great. Looks like there is a question in the chat. Yeah.
I'm off mute. Can you hear me?
Yep, we sure can.
So you've got a tool and it looks an awful lot like a neural network. And I'm wondering if has there been any research to get towards validity and reliability of what the tool says is happening is actually happening?
Sorry. Yes, there's a couple data points. So one, the path to agility approach, and then there's the software tool. So the approach we've been using we started doing things with that over five years ago, kind of harvested out of all the transformation coaching and consulting that we were doing. But it was in the form of like, you know, I'll show in the camera. It was the form of cards, right? And then COVID hit. How useful are these? not so useful, right? And so in doing that, we didn't really have much opportunity of gathering data. And even when COVID hit, we switched everything to Miro and Mural. That is one of the reasons why we built the software tool. We just built that we built it in last year. We launched it in February. And so we're just at the point of starting to truly gather that true correlation data, right? And so we're starting to get that in there, but I wouldn't say it's like at a point of high statistical relevance, right? Like we're still working through that. So hopefully in the next year we'll start to get some really interesting things coming out of that.
Thanks. And I'll continue to ask questions, but I tend to ask a lot of questions. So everybody give me the nod of like, okay, time to stop talking. I'm absolutely fine with that. I mentioned in the chat that I'm in the government. I'm on the research and development. I'm out at NREP, although I'm the government side of NREP. And our mission's really pretty easy. There's two missions. One is set up a strategy, execute on it, produce things that make the world a better place. That's kind of as hard as it gets. That's what research is. And the real mission, which goes across the government, the US federal government, which is the largest thing in the world in terms of employing people to do all sorts of silly stuff, basically. But our primary mission above everything else in every single instance, even going back to the US Constitution, because I looked it up to make sure I was right or wrong, is the stewardship of public trust and public money. And that is antithetical to Agile in a way. And there's massive amounts of organizational stuff, momentum going in a certain direction, inertia, that's the word, hard to move that piece, even just because it's large and everything. But there are real concerns, at least in my mind, of the stewardship of public trust. It's a big deal, and it's a unique organization in that really, really loud bad things happen, even for minor stuff. So people tend to be extremely conservative. If you come out of law school, they'll tell you, get the code book, copy and paste, and change nothing. It's taken, in some cases, a couple of millennia to come up with that sentence. Don't change it unless you know what you're doing. And so since government's on law, there's this huge inertia for things like that, culture and real legal problems. So given that giant context setting, where the heck does Agile sit in all of that? Have you done any of that?
So, so I think part of what you're hitting on is there's a cool framework called the competing values framework. That's a good way of kind of trying to capture and define culture and culture dynamics. And one of them in that there's 4 quadrants, and one quadrant's control and the other one's create, and they're at odds with each other, right? And that's kind of what you're hitting at, is that in an organization like yours that's very risk adverse, right? And that control culture can be slow. And it's the opposite of a highly innovative, creative, let's go test and learn. Let's just run a small experiment. Let's do that. It's the opposite, right? And there's a huge tension between those. So, and Agile can help us with the create, right? Agile, and so, but Agile can help us in other ways too. So if the organization, your organization is highly unlikely to say, you know what, we want to flip our culture to the other side and we want to be as innovative as Apple, right? Like that's not going to happen, right? But Agile can still help, and internally we could get feedback faster, right? We could have better visibility. We could be more predictable, right? We could have better engagement with our stakeholders, right? There's communication. There's so many other things that still could be benefits of working in Agile, even though you're not truly changing and flipping to this culture of being a highly adaptive organization, right? And that's okay, right? It's not that everybody has to be at this, like, I call it like 0 mile an hour Agile to 100 mile an hour Agile. 100 mile an hour Agile isn't for everybody, right? Like if you're a startup, you can be at this kind of 100 mile an hour Agile, but not everybody's needing to get to that point. So I think again, getting back to, well, what business outcomes does the organization really want? And are they serious about it? And then figuring out what capabilities we need to develop to do that. And we maybe don't need to do all of like the Agile in order to achieve that.
All right, thanks.
Great, David, this was absolutely fantastic. We appreciate you so much all the time. I can't even, my brain is full.
All right, good.
So thank you so much.
All right, cool.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thanks everybody for joining, and have a great evening, and we'll see you next time. And thanks very much, David.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.